Good evening and welcome to this 13th round of the Kart 1988 Championship hosted by Historic Simracing organization. Coming to you tonight from the Laguna Seca racetrack, nowadays known as Mazda Laguna Raceway, which is located in Monterey, California. Let's bring up the track map for you, for all of you. So Laguna Seca Raceway is the exact name of the racing circuit. It's 2.2 miles long as a permanent road course. We'll be racing for 84 laps around this track, which will equal to just under 186 miles. And of course, if you have followed the championship so far, you will know that the championship standings are very, very close indeed. Or well, it could have been closer if David Jonatan hadn't spun on the last lap of the last round at Nazareth, but we do have Jakob Fröksson in the lead in the championship at 139 points. Second is David Junt, who I mentioned just now, on 120 points. And third is Grant Riddle on 110 points. So he's 19 points behind. Sorry, I can't count. 29 points behind. I believe he could still win the championship if only with a lot of luck, because he would need both of the guys around him to not score any points in the last two rounds. And then in fourth is Jan Kowalski on 79 points. And equal fifth is Alan Forster and Richard Wilkes. Richard, who had a very good round last time out at Nazareth going for him, but unfortunately lap traffic caught him out and he ended up with no points scored. And now let's hone in on the track itself, where you can see all the guys going through the corkscrew, the most difficult and daunting corner on this track, which has a curved and uphill braking point on a crest, and then it's a very, very tight left-hander, and then you have to get the car squared up and straight to go down the hill, which I believe is a 3-story drop if I'm not misremembering, and then get the car turned to the right to go down the next long straight. As we can see there, Adam Hackman outbrakes himself going into the corkscrew and loses a bit of time. This is of course also the corner where Gonzalo Rodriguez lost his life in a horrific crash in 1999 when he had a stuck throttle during qualifying, I believe it was. Went straight ahead and over the barriers and dropped down the hill on the other side. But to go to a bit more of a happy state, let's have a look and see if Grant Riddle is out on track at the moment. He is. He has just started his lap, so let's see if we can find someone who is about to begin their lap. We have here David Saber, just about to start his lap. So let's ride on board with him, and I'll stay quiet for a little while. And that's a lap around the 11 corners of this track. As you can see, there's a lot of hard work involved in getting the cars around this circuit. It is a fantastic racetrack to race around, and I believe we'll have quite a bit of enjoyment watching it as well. Because the drivers will have to be on it for all of those 84 laps, and with the championship still on the line, I think there may be some spills as well along the way. And here he comes again up towards the corkscrew. You can see here right on the before the crest he starts braking, trying to get the car slowed down. He does it beautifully that time around. Nice and careful on the throttle. And that's by far the most difficult corner on the track, or two corners technically. And then of course we have one of the better overtaking opportunities right here at the hairpin, turn 11. And then a long straight where in an endurance race, I believe it was in 2011, Jan Magnusson had a bit of an altercation with a Porsche. I think it was Farnbacher who was driving that Porsche. They had been at it for the whole race, and coming up towards the line, Farnbacher promptly span Magnusson into the outside barriers, which was quite an upset at that point in time. But also it was a very, very good race to watch. Hopefully we'll get some of that good racing come to us here as well. And this is of course qualifying going on. And that's a beautiful camera, I must say. And so is this one at turn 6. And then coming up towards the corkscrew, turn 8. Ooh, really close to losing it there. And then turn 9 here. And turn 10, that right-hander Grant is going through now, and up towards turn 11 to finish off his lap. It has looked very, very quick. Not sure whether he'll get held up by the 88 coming out of the hairpin. I don't think he has. So let's see if he improves. He does, a 14.2. He's on fire tonight. 1.6 seconds his advantage to Martin Lasina at the moment. That is a massive difference in speed. And talking of Martin, here he is in his Labatt sponsored number 12 machine, doing his best to try and improve. David Junt has a bit of a moment. Not sure what happened there. As you can see there, that left-hander at turn 6 is more or less flat out. I think Martin may be held up a little bit in the last turn. The hairpin here runs wide as well. Probably won't be an improvement right here. It isn't. Then we have our championship leader currently in 3rd in this qualifying session, doing his best to secure the championship here and not having to wait until Tamiami to celebrate, because I don't think that's a circuit you want to try and secure a championship at. That's a bit too unpredictable. Not that Laguna Seca is that more predictable, but anyway, I'm fairly sure he wants to secure the championship here, and he's doing a good job trying to get a good position on the grid to do that. I believe that as long as he finishes ahead of David Junt and Grant Ridol in this race, there's nothing that they can do in the last round, and Jacob will have secured the championship. And please feel free to let me know in the chat if the sound levels are okay. I've been playing around a little bit with them to try and make my commentary be a little bit more audible over the engine sounds. I have had a couple of requests for me to do that. Oh, and Jacob really pushing going into the... Oh, he actually saved it. But he loses it at turn 9 instead. He was really pushing it going into the corkscrew, but wasn't quite able to hold it. Here we have Peter Lavac, currently in 4th. Doing a good job in Lee Simpson's old car. Making Lee proud, I think, or hope. Peter was also one of those who have had a couple of good rounds since he joined the championship, but not been able to capitalize on his good pace. Let's see, we have David Junt in 5th.
User joined your channel.
Coming through in his Michael Andretti machine, as we are joined by Jason White. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Jonathan. How are you?
Well, I'm pretty good. A little bit tired as usual, but that it wouldn't be.
Refereeing floorball?
Yeah, I have. I was at it for about 5.5 hours straight, so.
I was watching highlights of floorball to familiarize myself with it, and I was quite surprised by the fact that the goalie does not have a stick.
No, the goalie doesn't have a stick. It's the main difference between a hockey goalie and a floorball goalie. And of course, a floorball goalie also doesn't have quite as big knee pads to do the saves with. Which
he looks pretty vulnerable out there.
Yeah, it sort of is, and that's why as a goalie myself, when I play, I get pretty angry with players if they go and slash the goalie or something like that.
Or if they're in the crease.
Oh, indeed. And yeah, besides that, Laguna Seca. What are your thoughts about the circuit? In racing it, or driving it, maybe.
This is a circuit that everybody loves. I mean, I don't think you can find one person who doesn't like Laguna Seca, as far as just sheer driving enjoyment goes. It's like a roller coaster for race cars. It's a lot of fun, and this particular version of Laguna Seca, this is the version that we all know as the modern version. This was introduced in 1988, so. Prior to that, the older layout that omitted the section in the infield was used. So they would just bypass the section in the infield and just go straight for the backside of the course.
I do remember that. I believe we raced that a couple of years ago with the American powerhouses, like the AMC Javelin and stuff.
I know that we raced it with a bunch of different mods. We used Formula 5000, we used, I think, Trans Am. So we're familiar with...
It's the Trans Ams I'm thinking about.
Yeah. So we're using... We've used that, and that particular version of Laguna Seca will be used again next year for Can-Am. So... But for this particular mod, 88, this is the correct configuration. This track is surprisingly technical, and you have to, I'm finding at least it's really difficult for me to do laps consistently one after the other, because if you're off by just a little bit in your trajectory when you enter one of these corners, you're going into the dirt on the exit. It's really, it is like threading a needle every lap. So, and it's just it requires too much precision for my talents. So I know that I can do faster than the qualifying lap I put down, but at this point I'm just tired and kind of frustrated, and I'm just like, screw this. It's an 84 lap race. I'll just sort this out on the track. My car handles a little bit better when it's on full tanks, so I think that'll help make the race a little less nerve-wracking than qualifying's been. But I bet you've been talking to our viewers about what's at stake tonight.
I have indeed. I have mentioned that the championship is at stake. I'm not sure if it's a 2 or 3 horse race in case both the front runners.
Mathematically, Grant is still in the race, but it would require him to win both this race and Tamiami, and to have something very bad happen to both David Yunt and Jonatan. I'm sorry, not
Jacob.
Jacob Fredrickson.
Yeah, I was correct in my assumption then that was the case.
Yeah, so the chances of Grant mounting a challenge are slim. It's mathematically there, but not particularly realistic. It would require a lot of things to happen.
Well, he is doing his best for it at the moment. 1.5 seconds his advantage.
David basically is going to have to finish ahead of Jacob if he wants to keep things alive. I mean, if he finishes second, I think it still kicks the can down the road. I'll have to do a quick calculation, but this is basically Jacob's championship to lose. All he has to do is have a good outing here, and he's basically got it wrapped up.
Indeed, but as I said, it's not, while Tamiami is unpredictable, Laguna Seca ain't that more predictable than Tamiami. And I'm basing that on the fact that Tamiami is a street circuit, and street circuits are always unpredictable.
We'll have to see what happens. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to look at the points and do a quick calculation just for my own interest.
And we can see here from the camera that it's mounted at the top of the hill. We can see most of the circuit, first bit, and it's a fantastic looking track. And very different from 87 to 88, as Jason mentioned, with you can see right at the very left of our screen how the track continues.
Yeah, if you look, you can see the old bit that is no longer used. It's in this track. You can see it. It's beyond the barriers, and you can see where the cars would have gone had they just used the old bit.
Yeah. With the car park being where the track did go in the past. To the left of our screen.
Okay, so I just did a quick calculation. And so with Jacob on 139 points right now, if he wins the race, let's say he wins the race, but doesn't like score the pole position or most laps led. If he got 20 points, that would give him 159. If David Yunt, who has got 120 points, was second to him, that would give him 16 points, and he'd have 136.
Ooh. So that would... Ooh. That's a difficult one. What's the tiebreaker way of doing it in the series? Is it most wins or worst second result, or how?
It would be most wins, I would think, but in this case, 23 point difference. You know, that's insurmountable. Even if David got the pole and led the most laps and won at Tamiami, he would lose the championship by 1 point. So, and that's assuming that Jacob was out of the race in Tamiami. So, mathematically speaking, if Jacob, basically David has to finish ahead of Jacob, period, if he wants to stay in the championship. If Jacob wins this race and David finishes second, David's still out of it. So, that's the stakes.
Then I'm expecting some thrills and spills.
Yeah,
like I mentioned earlier to all the other folks watching.
David's got to let it all hang out here. He has to basically beat Jacob, period. You know, and Grant's only hope is that both of these guys take each other out or something.
Which wouldn't be completely impossible.
I don't know. We saw an impossible thing happen before with David having that issue.
Maybe.
You know, at the very end of Nazareth. So.
Well, you can at least commend him for trying to get the win instead of second.
Well, we were saying on the broadcast, it's like, dude, just throttle it back, take second, and he didn't do it. So
indeed.
That in particular is gonna, you know, it's yeah, it's, let me see, 159. I'm just gonna do this one more time. 159 minus 136 is 23 point. Yeah, so if Jacob just takes the win and David Young finishes second, the championship is still over. So that's how dire the situation is for David. All right. Well, I'm going to get my shop in order here. I'll talk to you later. Okay.
Yep. Good luck, and
hope that you guys have a fun broadcast.
I'm sure we will.
All right. Take care.
Good luck.
Thanks.
User disconnected from your channel.
So that's Jason White, who has helped us all throughout the season with the graphics that you see, such as the track map and the points picture and so on. And also doing a pretty good job racing, I must say. Finishing in the top 10 a couple of times, and overall seeming to enjoy himself. As we have 3.5 minutes to go in this qualifying session. Grant still on top, but David Yunt has improved to be second, Lacina third, Fregson fourth, Lavach fifth, Ray Riddle is sixth in the Domino's Pizza car, seventh for Yves Placé currently, eighth for Jan Kowalski, 9th for Adam Hackman, and rounding out the top 10 at the moment is Richard Wilkes. 11th currently is David Saber, I think is still driving number 3, he is. And 12th at the moment is Jonatan of Sweden. Very suitable that he's driving the blue and yellow Lola, I think he's driving. He is indeed. 13th is currently Mick Chapman, and 14th for Raoul Yareb. 15th for Michael Drexler, And 16th for Juha Boss. 17th is Michal Janak. And 18th is Gerard Rion, driving the number 5 Penske after Alberto Ibanez has given it up for the last 2 rounds because he can't make it for Tamiami and didn't feel like he quite had the time to practice for this event. Currently 19th is Jason White with 20th for Jason Fitch, 21st for Philippe Enrique, and 22nd and currently last on the grid for Bruno Chacon in the Porsche powered March 88C. And we have 1 minute to go. Jakob Fröksson has jumped up to 3rd, just behind David Junt, who is still out on track trying to improve. Oh, and he hit the anti-cut. Oh, that's a big one. That's unfortunate for him. He was trying very, very hard, and that can be the result. We also have Peter Lavac still out on track. He pulls off, so he doesn't want to finish his lap. Yves Placé is out on track in the number 98. Turn 6 is not quite flat for him as he heads into the corkscrew. A little bit of a lock-up on the left front, I noticed. A little bit of a tardy run through the corkscrew, but I think he may still be able to improve. A big lock-up for the driver in front, and another bit of a lock-up on the left front for Yves as well. Let's see if Yves is able to improve. He's not. And I don't think anyone else is out on... Well, we have a couple of cars here. That's Juha Boss and Michal Janak come across the line together, finish their last laps, and they are line astern for the grid as well. I believe those two were the last to set a lap. So congratulations to our pole sitter Grant Rivol for a very stunning piece of driving in the qualifying session to set a time 1.3 seconds ahead of anyone else in this 22 car grid. And I'll just let you ride on board with Adam Hackman here for a driver's eye view of the track. And I'll stay quiet for a little while to save my voice for the race, because this one will surely be a cracker. And that's a very neat, I believe, race lap for Adam around this track. 1:21.9 to start his runoff. I think he'll do another couple of laps in this warm-up session just to get a feel for the car, because the cars are very different with a full tank of fuel compared to the qualifying situation with just a few liters in the tank to get around for a lap or two. And here you can see the very tight pit entry as Jakob Ferguson makes his way into the pits for a practice pit stop, just to get a feel for where the limits are. And just like with the pit entry at Adelaide, the street circuit in Australia, there are a few drivers who have put themselves in the tyre walls coming into the pits around Laguna Seca, so don't be too incredibly surprised if we see one or two have a bit of a moment going into the pits, trying to gain a tenth or two to try and make up a position during the pit stops. can see that Jacob's car seems a little bit tail happy when he puts the power on. Especially if we compare his driving to that of Adam Hackman who were riding on board with just a moment ago. We look to have a late joinee, who is Jason Whited, so Jason Whited will be able to take to the grid, if only just in his number 55 Machinists Union car. You can see now that Grand Prix has gone to the top, so he's definitely on fire tonight, doing his best to try and put his glove back on the championship trophy. We can see ahead, I believe that's Michael Janak having a bit of a moment in the corkscrew. It was indeed just ahead of Jakob Ferguson. It would seem like the brakes would be a bit of an issue for our drivers tonight as well, as there's been a lot of lockups when we've been riding on board with different drivers, as Jon Team locks up a little bit again going into turn 1. Nowadays called Andretti Hairpin, but it had yet to be given the name back in '88. And David Junt currently quickest on the track during this warm-up session, as we have about 30 seconds to go. If only just, I don't think there were more than a couple of hundredths of a second between Junt and Rideau. And Enrique has a spin in front of David Junt there, coming out of the hairpin. Bit too happy on the throttle pedal for Enrique, I think. And David does a 17.9. We are now getting ready for the formation lap ahead of this 84 lap race around Laguna Seca in Monterey, California. So let's see. On pole position for this race, which the safety car is a little bit slow to pull away, is Grand Ridol, who took it by over a second ahead of David Junt, who lines up second on the grid. Third for Jakob Fredriksson and fourth for Peter Lavac. Fifth was Martin Larsina with sixth for Ray Ridol, seventh for Yves Placé, and eighth for Jan Kowalski. Ninth was Adam Hackman with Richard Wilkes rounding out the top 10. 11th for David Saber and 12th for Jon Team. 13th for Mick Chapman and 14th for Raoul Jereb. 15th was Michael Drexler with 16th for Juha Boss. 17th is Michal Janak. And 18th for Gerard Riol. My apologies, Gerard. I've been used to Alberto being in that car for the whole season. 19th is Jason White with 20th for Jason Fitch. 21st is Felipe Enrique with 22nd for Bruno Chacon. And rounding out the grid, joining in during warm-up, is Jason Whited in 23rd spot. You can see here the whole field coming through the corkscrew on the formation lap here, looking glorious. See, we are getting ready for the rolling start, going through the hairpin now. Let's see if everyone is able to line up. So we are coming up towards the line, and the green flag is out, and the races go. And everyone's streaming down towards the hairpin on lap 1. Looking fairly sorted at the moment. A bit close towards the back of the pack. But it's looking more or less okay. And Grand Ridol holds on to the lead. Junt second, Fredriksson third. So the championship contenders are all in the top 3 spots at the moment. And then it's Martin Larsina, Peter Lavac. And everyone else streaming through. Coming through the corkscrew for the first time. Top 10 gets through unscathed. And it looks like everyone is... Oh, Jason White has lost his rear wing. Whenever did that happen? I'll try to quickly get a look on that. Oh dearie me, it looks like there's been some contact going into the corkscrew. I jinxed it, saying that everyone looked to be getting through okay. Oh, and Jason Fitch is out of the race already. Michal Janak has lost his rear wing as well. Wow, that's not a good situation for those guys. I really feel for them. I wanted everyone to have a good opening lap and to be able to race on this track. Grant Vidal holds on to the lead and has opened up a gap to David Juntil second, Jakob Fredriksson third, Matti Lassina fourth, with Peter Lavac fifth, and Ray Redal sixth, seventh for Jan Kowalski, so those two have climbed a position each. 8th currently for Yves Placé, 9th for Jon Team, and 10th still for Richard Wilkes. And then we have David Saber behind him and Adam Hackman in 12th. And then it's Juha Bors in 13th, Gerard Rion in 14th, Chapman 15th, Raoul Yereb 17th, is it? 16th, my apologies. 17th for Michael Rexler, 18th for Jason Whited, and Felipe Enrique 19th, and 20th for Bruno Chacon. And then of course we have a lap down each for Michal Janak and Jason White, which is a very unfortunate situation, and Jason Fitch already out of this race. I can hear, I believe, either Jason White or Michal Janak is heading out back onto the track. I believe that will have been Michal Janak, and now goes Jason White as well. So those two, that's a difficult thing to say. Now back out on track, which is nice to see. Hopefully their cars has been repaired properly and they can keep on driving around this beautiful California circuit. And there we can see Jason White very sportingly getting out of the way. I'll see if I can find a battle for us to watch for a couple of laps. Here we have David Saber and Jon Team at it at the moment. Where Saber goes very tight in turn 10. When Jon Team locks up into turn 11, the hairpin, Saber tries to look up the inside, but Team gets a better run off the corner. But Saber clearly has a bit more top end speed, so he goes up the inside. Jon Team tries to repass him on the exit, but ain't able to do so and loses the position. Very nice pass from David there, and Jon did a good job of not forcing the issue. He instead gave up the position, with it being a very long race, and looks to get on with his race and maybe come back at David later. Raoul Yereb lost out a little bit trying to get by David Saber, and that almost gave an opportunity for Jason White to go by, and now Raoul runs wide at turn 6, and I believe this will be... Actually not, Jason takes a very cautious approach to the corkscrew and and Raoul is able to hold on to his position for the time being. And Raoul pushing very hard. And Jesus looking up the inside at the hairpin, but not able to make anything of it. When we have a fight here between Chapman and Juhabos, side by side at the moment, going in towards turn 5. Sorry, turn 4. It looks like Chapman will take the position from Juha here. Or maybe not. Mick runs a little bit wide, but he gets the power down by the looks of things, and takes the position. Nice driving from both of them to leave each other room, as Jason White gets out of the way of David Saber. And the dirty air brought John Team out a little bit, I think, but he makes his way past as well. We can see that Grant is romping away with his lead here. He must have over almost 10-second advantage already after only 5 or 6 laps, I think. After only 6 laps, so he will surely take the win here, as long as he can keep it on the track, of course. Owen, I believe that's okay. That's Michal Janak trying to get out of the way and having a bit of a moment at the corkscrew. We can see Jan Kowalski has some pretty good speed in his car, but Ray 2 is able to go pretty quickly. Ooh. Using a bit too much track, both of them right there. They are allowed to put 2 wheels inside of the white line onto the pit exit road, but not 4 tires, so that's a bit aggressive from both of them. Where Matelacina up ahead runs a little bit wide, going through turn 6 into the corkscrew. A little bit of lockups and a lot of sparks flying around as well. Okay, the Lava's having a bit of a close call. Looks like Grant is driving the car pretty hard, but of course he wants to build an advantage. I think he may already know that he won't he will do one more stop than the rest maybe, and that's why he's pushing on. You can see again Lavac struggling a little bit coming out of the hairpin. And here is the battle on again, or still between Ray and Jan. When Jan looking towards the outside, going into turn 1. Not quite enough room for him there. But this is a very close contest at the moment. Looks like Jan has a bit more, either less wing or more engine power. Well, as he tries around outside at turn 5. Oh, he's coming around outside into turn 6. You don't want to be too wide here, and Ray concedes, and that's a very, very nice pass from Jan. Very, very sporting driving from both of them, leaving each other a good bit of space, and yeah, a very nice pass. It looks like the rest of the field is pretty spread out at the moment. Was we have Mick Chapman in the pits when Felipe Enrique is out? That's unfortunate. I wonder if they may have come together, because I believe they were on the same piece of track earlier on in the race. You can see here that Martin Lacina is struggling a little bit in the dirty air behind Jacob Fredriksson. I do believe Martin is a little bit quicker than Jacob at the moment, but because of the dirty air, the wake from Jacob's car, Martin ain't quite able to quite get close enough to challenge for the pass. And of course in the places where he needs to stay behind him, like in turn 9, the sweeping downhill left-hander after the corkscrew, he's losing a bit of time there because he loses grip in the front wing, on the front of his car, I should say. That's why he's still behind Jacob, but we can see that he's able to close in fairly easily by the looks of things. Oh, as he has a moment, this should open up for Peter Lavac to make his way by. Here he comes with a massive run. But he's not able to make the position, I don't think. No, he isn't. Martin is still ahead of Peter. My apologies for the camera work. but that relieves Jacob a little bit. When a lot of traffic for the leaders right here. David Junt going by Gerard Rion, and far up the road is Grant Riddle. Looks like some of the guys has made their first pit stops. And here comes Grant Riddle for his first pit stop. Really trying to put the power on to try and gain all the time he possibly can. I see David still haven't rounded the last turn of the lap. Here he comes. Here he comes. He was behind Michael Drexler, and here as Grant Riddle leaves his pit stop, David Junt goes by. I believe Grant will just about rejoin ahead of Jacob Fredriksson here. Jacob trying to look at the inside, but besides, discretion is the better part of valor, and looking for the long haul. As Martin Lacina behind again makes a slight mistake. Locks up his front tires and runs a little bit wide. And we can see there that the pace difference is a little bit. As Martin has a big moment. He ended up on the dirt coming out to turn 5 and put the power on and almost lost it, as Michael Drexler is off to the side of the road there. I believe he was rejoining as we went by, so hopefully his car ain't damaged and he's still able to race. Oh, and Jason White being almost assaulted by the lap traffic. Of course, with this being more or less a one-line racetrack, it isn't easy to get out of the way of faster cars. And here we have the battle still on between Ray and Jan. So Ray has gotten by Jan once again. Not sure how that will have happened, but probably in traffic. And a big moment for Jan coming out of turn 5, trying to put the power on. And with the lap traffic ahead, I believe that's Bruno Chacon. It is indeed in the Quaker State Porsche powered machine. As he gets out of the way before turn 9. Unless these two get on with their race. And as I said earlier, it looks like it's pretty spread out, so the battle is on right here with Grant Riddle catching David Junt at the moment. And the battle, of course, for I believe it would have been 5th and 6th between Ray and Jan. You can clearly see that Grant is quicker than David at the moment. When I believe Jakob Fredriksson was running wide in the background. I think he's enjoying a little bit of a gap to Martin Lassina. It could have been that it's Martin Lassina right behind him, but I thought he was lapping someone. It looked like it was the lapper that was behind Jakob. No, that is Martin Lassina, so Martin Lassina right behind, but I think Peter Lavac may have jumped into the pit lane because I can't see him behind. When Grant runs wide coming out of turn 3. Closes right back up going into 4. So Grant is definitely quicker. The question is how long can he go at that scintillating pace? Ooh, as he had a bit of a thought about it, locked his wheels going into the corkscrew. It's a bit of an audacious move, trying for it in the corkscrew. Very, very aggressive if you actually go up inside there for a pass. And Grant going around outside, trying for the cutback coming onto the front straight. But David gets a pretty good exit. But here comes Grant. Because of course he's very quick in a straight line. But David holds on for now. Grant trying for the exit again. Looking up the outside into 2. Not able to do it. Slides wide. And of course this is a battle for the championship as well, because if David loses out to Grant, he could very easily lose out to Jakob as well, because Jakob ain't that far behind. But of course this is also slowing them both up, so looks like Jakob is closing in just a little bit on David, and I don't think David likes that, so it may be more beneficial for David to let Grant by and try to learn his lines. And maybe even more so his braking points. When David runs deep in the hairpin, and this I'm pretty sure will be Grant going by. It is. Let's see if David can put up an answer going into into turn 1. Grant covers. That was a good little fight there for the lead of the race at the OS. Grant has a slow turn 6. David has a bit of a run coming up towards the corkscrew. But he's very sensible, doesn't look for the move. Just tries to stick behind Grant, as close behind him as he can. And trying to look for a move either into the hairpin the last turn or turn 1. But Grant is really strong in the last few turns, but he runs wide. This could open up for opportunity for David, especially if he turns the boost up a little bit. I think he may have done so, I should say. And he wasn't quite able to get close enough to go for the move. Grant is trying to pull away, but I think he's slightly overdriving it at the moment. He has a better turn 6, so I believe he will pull away now. Because he's had a really good pace. Although David has a very good entry into the corkscrew. The battle for 5th and 6th is still on. Even if they've gapped each other just a little bit. And otherwise it's looking pretty spread out. And Bruno Chacon has had a bit of a moment and the corkscrew gets going once again. This is a very easy thing to do, to have a bit of a moment in that very corner. But 21 laps in, these are the standings at the moment. I won't show you all the drivers because I went through them just now, but I will show you where they are in the positions tree and the relative laps in front or behind of other drivers. But I'll also, since there is a bit of a, well, maybe not, because Ray and Jan has closed up once again, so we'll follow this battle for a little while longer, because I do have a trivia question which I will pull up when there is a bit of a pause in the battles. Which there sort of seem to be right now, so let's pull up the trivia question. And we'll come back to this battle. So the trivia question is: who won the first kart IndyCar race at Laguna Seca on October 23rd, 1983? Was it A. Al Unser Jr., B. Theo Fabi, or C. Mario Andretti? I must be honest, I was wrong when I answered that question earlier, but I'll bring the question and answer up later in this race when there again is a bit of a pause in the battles. But while we were looking at the question, Ray headed into the pits, and Martin Lacina also has been in the pits, as has David Junt, and he rejoins just ahead of Jan Kowalski. So Jakob Fröksen is running deep into his stint once again, which seems to be something he prefers to do because he's done it in several events that I've seen him race, and it's a strategy that I personally like as well. Maybe it's a Swedish thing, I don't know. But he is going around again, so I wouldn't be surprised if he does 4 or 5 more laps than anyone else. If he is really good at saving fuel. If he does that, so he has 1 less stop than everyone around him except for Grant, where he may even have 2 less stops, he could very well take the win here tonight. It all depends on how quick Grant actually is when he's in more or less clean air, because with David pitting, Grant should have an open track to take the lines he wants. And just try to pull away like he did in the opening stint. So the magic number that Jacob wants to hit to do the race on 3 stops, well, he already has hit that magic number, but if he reaches 30 laps, well, if he reaches 26 or 27 laps, he should be able to make it on 2 stops. And if he gets there, that will be a massive feather in his cap towards the race and possibly the championship. And as we've seen so far, he's just trying to stay out of trouble and keep the speed up. This is very interesting to watch. He has 2 more laps to do, I believe, to make this on a 2-stop strategy. And he pulls him now, so he's right on the limit. He will have to do a bit of fuel saving in the last 2 stints. But if he does that and still keeps the speed up, he could very well make it on a 2-stop. Maybe with a bit of a splash at the end if it's really marginal, but he definitely looks good and set for this race. Peter Lavac is out of this race with an engine failure. No. What rotten luck. It looks like he got out of the first turn and possibly on the gear change. He would have been on the gear change just as he hit the higher revs in 2nd or 3rd, his engine went. Oh, and we have another couple of retirements as well. Mikael Drexler is out with suspension damage. That could have been from the off we saw earlier. And David Saber is out as well. He had such a good race going, but he's out with an accident. Not sure if we'll be able to see it, but I'll give it a quick try. You can see he's lost his rear wing, so he must have backed it in somewhere. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see what exactly happened in that with that crash. But we can see that Grant Riddell has a 28-second lead in this race, making his way past Jason White right here. And behind we have a very close battle now between the main championship contenders. Will Ferguson right behind David Junt, so he's closer now than he was in the after the first stint. So somehow Jacob has had a quicker pit stop. Which is very impressive. He must know something that no one else does, with being able to have quick pit stops and being able to save a bit more fuel than anyone else. But he's definitely doing a good job. Oh, and David Junt is being held up a little bit by Richard Wilkes. Unintentional, of course, for Richard. You just have nowhere to go in the corkscrew. But we could see that Jacob left a bit of a safety margin in case something happened between Richard and David. And that's the championship mind at work. With the Lavach being out of the race, I believe we had another. Ray Riddell is out with an engine as well. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll be able to see. We may be able to see the end of it. Same place as Peter Lavach. Exact same place. We were smoking very early. I think that's an overheating engine rather than a purely blown engine. So he was probably revving the engine a little bit too hard for a bit too long, and yeah, the engine decided it wouldn't take it any longer, which is unfortunate. We can see that David Juntas actually closed in on Grant this last lap, and he's pulled away a little bit from Jakob Ferguson as well. And of course, if Jakob wants to make it on a 2-stop, he will have to be saving quite a bit of fuel. I believe, at least, but I can have a quick calculation at it. My apologies for being a little bit unprofessional. So he pitted on lap 26. He's about 4, make that 6 laps off. So you'll need to go another 2 laps in these last 2 stints, or 3 laps more in this stint, and then maybe he'll be able to make it on 1 more stop. But again, he'll be really marginal to make it. But I wouldn't put it past him to do that, or just go for a quick splash at the end and still get out ahead of the others. Jonatan currently inside the top 10. In 8th, doing a very nice job. Keeping the car on track and keeping it at a decent speed as well. We can see he's being fairly careful going into the corkscrew, which is perfectly understandable. It's a very difficult turn, but if we compare that to Grant Riddell, he's way too cautious, but I'm certainly not blaming him. I really love this camera. We can see how much the suspension, the arm that we have in front of us have to work. Even more impressive when you watch, for example, V8 supercars where they have cameras showing the rear wheels, or one of the rear wheels when it's working along the track, with how it moves around, how it's almost torn off the rim. And I'm imagining seeing that on the wheel, on this right-hand rear wheel, and my mind is partly being blown apart with that. Because the forces would be even bigger in these cars than in the V8 supercars back in the day. Back in the day, of course, in '88, it would have been under the Australian Touring Car Championship was ran under the Group A regulations, seeing Holdens, Ford Mustangs, and I believe the Ford Sierras would have made it into the championship in '88 as well, and the BMW M3s and those kind of cars. But again, unfortunately, it looks like the field is very, very spread out. Jason White is into the pits for his second stop, I think, due to repairs he had to do early on in the race. I'm very intrigued to see how all this plays out, because I believe Grant will have one more stop than David Jund in this race, but then of course David Jund will probably have one more stop, or at least a longer last stop compared to Jakob Fredriksson. Because David and Jakob seem to be of equal pace as well, so unless David picks up the pace a little bit here and starts lapping a few tenths quicker every lap, I'm not sure he'll come out ahead of David after the pit stop. Jakob after the pit stops, and unless David does that, then the championship is most likely over. With Jason White ends up in a bit of a pickle there, but he does a good job of getting out of the way. Nice job there, Jason. But as I've been saying here, it looks or been talking here, it seems like David has opened up a little bit of a gap to Jakob, and don't know, maybe this is Jakob trying to fuel save a little bit to make it on one less stop altogether compared to David. It's a fine line to walk because you can't fall back too far. Let's have a look at the others inside the top 10. Martin Lassina in 4th. He's been the he's pretty much been the best of the rest for the last half of the season. Really picked up his pace after, or maybe I should say ahead of Pocono, and then from Pocono onwards, he's been right there in the races pace-wise. Not quite been able to make it to the top step of the podium, but still nice to see. And then we have Jan Kowalski, who's had some very good races. He finished second after a race-long battle at Michigan, just a few thousandths of a second behind David Jund, who won that race. And that was probably the best race of the season, actually, in terms of the racing that it produced, especially the close nature of the racing. But of course, all the races this season has provided a good bit of entertainment and racing, all be of different kinds. And fifth currently, and in the pits actually, Omar Lacina's in the pits again, so he is on the same strategy as Grant Rudolph, I think. Anis Placé in the number 98 in 6th, doing a good job in that car. He's joined the championship a little bit late, but quickly found his feet and keeping up a good pace, although he's missing his front wing at the moment, by the looks of things, and that's understandably slowing him down a little bit. As he heads for the pit lane, so maybe this lost front wing has been very shortly ahead of his stop here, so he's hopefully still on his bang on with this strategy. And currently 7th is Jon Team, who I've said earlier has joined the championship as well. He joined it a little bit later than everyone else, but has found his feet fairly well and doing a very good job here. And, hopefully he'll get a top 10 finish, maybe even a top 5 finish to cap off his debut season in HSO, and hopefully have many more seasons to come. I don't think he finished inside the top 5 at Nazareth. I believe he got a top 10 there. Although I could be wrong, so my apologies, John, if I'm mistaken. And currently 8th is Eves, of course, having just been into the pits. 9th is Adam Hackman, who struggled earlier in the championship, but now consistently inside the top 10, which is very nice to see. He's definitely found his pace and the way to drive these cars well. And he's certainly quicker than I would ever be in these kind of cars. Maybe he'll even be able to close in on Yves Placé for a bit of a battle here, because before he himself heads into the pit lane. And 9th is Jason Whitehead, actually. Wow, so he's had a very good race, starting from 23rd and last on the grid, sitting in 9th at the moment. Sorry, 10th. My apologies, that's 10th. But still, inside the top 10, starting from last position, is a very good drive and some very, very neat pace. And that's nice to see. He's had some good performances, but He has been struggling a little bit in the open wheel series, both the F1 championship and here, but nice to see that he's inside the top 10, and hopefully he'll get a top 10 finish, so that he can be very, very pleased with his effort tonight. To be fair, he can be pleased right now, even if he retires, because he got into the top 10 from starting last. Let's see, I notice here that Grant Ridal has been into the pits a few laps ago. Oh, and my dearie me, Mick Chapman has retired and he ran out of fuel. He surely won't be happy with that. Well, that's what can happen when you push it to the very limit. As I said, Grant has been into the pits, but he has rejoined ahead of of those hunting him. Them being David Junt and Jakob Fuchsen, first and foremost. And while David has gapped Jakob Fuchsen, he ain't able to pull out the gap too far, so he's right on the limit, I think, to be able to hold on to second and still have a chance in the championship. Oh, and David got held up a little bit behind Michal Janak right there. I'm fairly sure he will have been held up anyway. Now he has and now David has another 2 cars that he needs to put a lap on. One of them is actually, wasn't there that Martinasina? It was. Wow. So the pace of the top 3 is very, very fast indeed. Bruno Chacon runs a little bit wide, as we are joined by Jason White. So Jason, are you out of this race then? If you're here,
my color commentary role.
Oh dearie me, what happened, Jason?
Oh, just it was a difficult race from the start. Corkscrew in lap 1, and Michal Janak, to his credit, was being very careful on the opening laps, very tentative, and I was pretty close behind him, and I saw him like letting up a couple of times. Then he let up a bit more than I expected him to, going up to the corkscrew, and I hit the brakes suddenly, and Jason Fitch just ran straight into the back of me, didn't even react. So, or if he did, he didn't react quickly enough. And that pushed me into Michal Janak, and so...
Oh, so that's why you two had to repair your cars. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just really far behind by this point, and I had a 3rd spin, and I was just like, screw this. I just, don't want to get in the way of people out there, especially not our championship contenders.
Well, that's a commendable attitude, although you being partly in the way spices things up a little bit.
No,
if you pardon the expression.
I'm not interested in adding the wrong kind of spice.
Okay, fair enough. I notice...
Did you ask the trivia question?
I have asked the trivia question, I haven't given out the answer yet. I'm waiting till around lap 60, I thought. I would wait
Okay,
for.
cool.
Or a real pause in battles, because unfortunately with some of the retirements the field has been spread out quite a bit. But the race is definitely still on between David Junt and Jakob Fredriksson first and foremost, and of course Grant is romping away with the lead. Having done 2 pit stops to the others doing 1, he's still ahead.
Yeah, I saw that Grant came in a bit earlier than expected, and even with that, he's still in front. So this is yet another one of these situations like Mid-Ohio where he's just hooked up.
Indeed. The question is, will the car take the strain? Which it unfortunately didn't do at Mid-Ohio.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. He had a similar. Well, no, he won Mid-Ohio, but there was another race. I think you're thinking of Road Atlanta, maybe, or sorry, Road America.
Oh yeah, sorry,
Yeah, where he
my apologies. It's been a long day.
Then he blew the engine. So, yeah. Well, I mean that's a question mark. I mean, hopefully he's learned something from that, and he's not going to make the same mistake twice and give himself more room in the rev department.
Yeah, we can definitely hope so. And
but he's currently leading David Junt by 10 seconds, 10.3 seconds, and David's in front of Jacob by about 2 seconds, exactly. You can see him just behind him.
yeah. Oh, and I believe David will be held up a little bit in the corkscrew here. He ends up right behind Joa Boos, who, just like it wasn't Michael Jan, I can't remember now who it was, but in the corkscrew you sort of only have one line, so trying to get out of the way there is really difficult for the car being lapped.
I think Juha handled that pretty well, though.
Oh, he did. But still, I think that will have lost a few tenths here. See as they come across the line. Yeah, he lost almost 8 tenths that lap compared to Jacob. So that's very unfortunate for David.
Well, David knows that we're, only now at halfway in this race, so there's still quite a few laps to go, and anything can happen. But basically, this is the scenario that he needs to have happen here. He needs to have his blue and yellow Preco car finish in front of the Machinists Union Playboy Fashions and Schaefer beer car.
Spoken like a true American.
I'm sure that Fredriksson's team is in the pits with the Playboy Bunnies and and Schaefer Beer and the Machinists Union guys, ready to have one hell of a party. But David doesn't want them to be able to have that party here.
Indeed, I'm not sure the series organizers want that either.
Oh,
and here comes David, so he's definitely on a 3-stop strategy.
This is a scheduled stop, so he gives up the position to Fredriksson. Let's see how long this takes. Jacks go up. It should be a fairly quick stop unless he's incurred any damage. Now he drops off the jacks.
Just waiting for the fuel.
He's just waiting for fuel, and there he goes. So it was a standard pit stop. Car is in good trim, it appears.
And it looks like he'll get out just about in front of Bruno Chacon, so in a bit of clear air.
Mm-hmm. He's got a little bit of room there,
which will be good for him to make use of those brand new rubbered up tires.
Well, he's going to have to. He's now got full fuel and he's got cold tires, so he's going to take his time probably getting them up to temperature. And he's not being hounded by anyone at the moment, so he's got a good chance of things up to temperature and back up to the speed that he's used to.
Indeed. But something that I've been wondering about is whether Jacob will make it on a 2-stop, because he lasted many laps longer than anyone else. He pitted on lap 26 compared to David Junt pitting on lap 21 or 22. So I was considering if Jacob can make it to make this stint 28 laps more or less, then he should be able to make it on that 1 stop and then not have to stop before the finish. And if he does, it's only for a quick splash and dash.
It's tempting to think that this is a track that demands lots of speed, but really it's about getting through these tight corners as quickly as possible. The original version of Laguna Seca, that was a much shorter version, that one, average speed laps for cars like these would have been 120 miles an hour, and for 1988 they were down in the 100 mile per hour bracket. So, I mean, that's the kind of speed that you would see on some of the faster street circuits, so it's not a particularly fast track when you get down to it.
Indeed. And of course, many of these turns allows you to lift and coast going into them and still not lose that much time coming out of them.
Yeah, and conversely, they can be a big problem if the turbo kicks at the wrong time.
Indeed. We have seen that for a few guys coming out of the last turn, where Jacob is exiting at the moment, where I think it was Michal Janak had a big moment spinning up the rear wheels as he tried to put the power on and get out of the way of David Junt at the time.
Yeah, I think everybody's been, I mean, I've noticed going through the race that everybody's been, for the most part, doing a very good job of trying to stay out of the way. Anytime I saw a blue and yellow car or a red and white car coming up behind me, I made damn sure I was going to get out of the way with plenty of time for everyone, because the last thing you want to do is to become a factor, a Randy Lewis in this championship fight.
Yeah, I think no one wants to become a Randy Lewis.
Yeah, that poor guy. His highlight reel is more of a low light reel.
Yeah. Poor guy. But as you say, so far there haven't been any major concerns with the lapped traffic, and we are coming up to lap 49. So I think if Jacob can make it to lap 52, 53... Oh, he doesn't, he heads in now.
Yep, he comes into the pits now.
So that will be a quick splash and dash towards the end of the race for him, but it will be a much quicker stop than what it will be for David Junt. So David needs to put some fire on the wood, and some wood on the fire, I should say.
Here comes David now into, oh goodness, Juha almost didn't see him, but he's coming now. Okay, now it's a drag race to turn 1. Who's going to get out ahead? It looks like Fredrickson might get out ahead of him. We'll see. He did!
Oh, but will he be able to stay ahead though? Because he will have cold tires.
Now, so if David wants to put himself back in front, the time is now, because he's got a car with a tiny bit less fuel and warm tires. So now it's the chance to attack.
And this is very reminiscent of what happened after the first set of pit stops, because then Jacob was much further back, but was still ended up only 2-3 seconds behind David after the pit stop. So
oh boy, this could be a very dangerous series of turns coming up here. These guys better be careful. David's right up his gearbox.
Oh, he has a run. He has a massive run.
Up to the corkscrew. They're going to be side by side. Oh my goodness!
Oh, Jacob backs out of it. Very smart there.
Yeah, Jacob, I think, did the smart thing and let him go by, because he knows that he's in a position where, you know, he can basically let David go. He's, you know, even if I mean, it's only halfway, and you don't want to end in a situation like that, because then they're basically handing a championship situation back to Grant. Imagine what would have happened if the two of them had taken each other out of the corkscrew there.
Oh, it would have been a very spicy last round to be had, that's for sure.
It would have been Christmas morning for Grant. He would have suddenly been put back into the championship fight.
Indeed. Now that's David with, again early on in the stint, a massive slide in turn 2. Trying to put the power on.
Well, David's one of these guys that can drive quali lap after quali lap in the race. He just has that ability. Not everybody in the league can do that. Fredriksson's in the same boat.
Well, the difference is Fredriksson doesn't look quite as on the edge as David does. That must be said.
Yeah, look at him! Look at him run right out the curb there. He is absolutely just driving for everything he's worth. He wants to put some daylight between himself and Fredriksson as quickly as possible.
Indeed, and Fredriksson made that gap a little bit larger. He locked up going into the corkscrew there. Ran a little bit wide.
Okay, this is interesting. We've got a couple of cars coming up here. They got a lap. One of them is Raul Ureb, the other one is Yves Placé.
Well, I don't think they should put up too much of a hassle for these guys, but you never know. When a big lockup, I believe that will have been for Raul Ureb ahead. A lot of smoke. Maybe
Just checking really quick. These two, Raul Ureb and Yves Placé, are not in contest for position, so at least we don't have to worry about that playing a role.
That's very much true. Ooh, and actually after all the pit stops, I think Jan Kowalski has made his way up to 4th position, so he's jumped Martin Lasina in the last few laps.
In the Darren Brassfield car, making only its 2nd appearance in this series.
Indeed, and with that, I think if he finishes where he is right now, Jan Kowalski will secure 4th place in the championship standings as well. Which I think
that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think he'll be pretty happy with that. Ooh, and Jacob again runs a little bit deep. I think he's struggling a little bit with the cold tires and maybe slightly worn brakes at the moment, because that's his 2nd big lockup in the last 2 laps, as David Jund made his way past Raul Ureb as well. And actually, no, sorry, that was... I was looking at the wrong... it was a white car, but it wasn't Jan Kowalski close behind them.
The other driver is having a good... oh, we got somebody coming in here. It's Peter Hlavik.
Good evening, Peter. I'm not sure if you want to chat or not, but welcome to the broadcast booth either way.
Welcome to the booth.
Apologies for my Swedish English. Not much I can do about that. But yeah, David has opened up a massive gap, so I think Jacob may have been held up a little bit behind Raul when Jacob went to lap him.
He may have been, but something... I mean, Jacob clearly is not as quick as he was in the previous stint, so I don't know if something's changed handling-wise, or it may be just that he got held up in a couple of situations there.
Either that, or, as I mentioned earlier, he may be fuel-saving to not make another stop. But to be fair, it feels
That's
like
a good
it would...
point.
But it feels like it would be better to try and keep the speed up and make it on a splash and dash instead.
You bring up a good point. You know that, I mean, that splash and dash. If I were in his shoes, I would rather be quick on the circuit and then try to spend as little time in the pits as possible. But he's doing the opposite. He's, oh goodness, look at this, a bit of a miscue going on here. Oh man.
Ooh.
Okay, Placé lets him by. Rion was in there as well. Everybody's being really... I mean, apart from the incident that happened on lap 1 at the corkscrew, it seems like everybody's being really careful up there, which is great to see.
Clearly no one wants to affect the championship's fight.
No! No one wants to make the highlight reel for the wrong reasons.
Well, if someone takes out David, Jacob will probably think it's for the right reason that they make to the highlight reel.
Yeah, but he's the only guy
Maybe.
on track who'll see it that way.
True. Well, I'm not sure even he would see it that way. Ooh, as Yves Placé has a massive sideways moment coming out of turn 2.
I'm curious to see if Peter knows the answer to the trivia question.
I can tell you now that I got it wrong when I tried to answer it earlier today.
Oh man, because I try to find questions that are difficult to answer.
Well, it was very difficult, and I got it wrong. Well, then again, I can blame that on the fact that I haven't really I'm a bit too young to have watched Kart in '83, since I was born in 1993.
I'll put a floorball trivia question in the next race, okay?
I put that in as a bit of a bonus trivia question, maybe.
That'll be, yeah, I'll make that a bonus trivia question for next year.
Then it would probably only be me able to answer that.
Well, I might do some research.
Fair enough.
No, well, wait a minute. No, that doesn't make sense. If I come up with a question, I'm automatically out of being able to answer it. Unless I step in an amnesia.
Oh, Jacob! Jacob is out of the race. Oh, dearie me. Wow. Wow. I was on board with him as well as that went on. Going into turn 6, he hit the anti-cut on the inside, and the car launched into the air, and he had no chance whatsoever to try and correct it, and out into the barriers he went and crashed pretty heavily into the tire wall.
I'll put the Schaefer beer back in the fridge, because we're basically going to Tammy. That ensures that we're going to Tamiami.
Yeah, and that's exactly what David Junt needs as well.
Yeah,
as well as Grant Riddle.
David's breathing a huge sigh of relief here.
But wow, I didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah, that's quite a shock, actually. Peter, did you see that? Yeah, not expected at all.
One of the most reliable guys we have. And yeah, this is Rocker.
Well, so looking at the championship situation, I mean, obviously we're going to Tamiami. Worst case scenario for David, if he doesn't finish this race, which is, that would have to be another shocking development. But if that happened, he'd be 19 points behind still, and that would mean that he would need for Jacob to have another terrible incident at Tamiami. So basically, he's got to. I mean, if he's smart, he's not going to try to. No, I mean, he needs every point he can get. So he really, it's to his advantage to chase down Grant. What do you guys think?
Well, it's not just about crashing out. It might be also, just blowing the engine exactly as I did.
Is that what happened with your car?
Yeah, well, I probably was a little too aggressive with upshifting, and yeah, basically when I was shifting from the first to second between turn 1 and 2, it blew up instantly. There was no way to avoid it, except for probably a little more careful driving.
Actually, I got a confession to make. Lee Simpson told me before the race that he actually put vegetable oil in the gearbox. So that's actually what happened. Just kidding.
I didn't even think they had vegetable oil in America.
No, that's just me. Oh yeah, we vegetable oil to us is just like, huh? What?
Considering what I've seen American people eat over the years, I wouldn't quite expect vegetable oil to be part of the diet, so to speak.
So considering the fact that you guys are running 85 corn fuel, you're not far from vegetable oil.
That's true, I suppose.
These are methanol-powered vehicles. So 24 laps to go. Grant has got an insane lead on David right now.
And by the looks of things, not making the tiniest bit of mistake at all. Using all of the track and a little bit more sometimes, but not overdoing it at all. Which is very impressive to see.
Well, that's a mark of a good driver. You learn from previous mistakes.
Indeed. We have seen earlier in the season that he can get hooked up to a circuit, as you mentioned a few laps to go, Jason, and clearly that is what is the case here as well.
You know what I just realized? Grant and David Yudd are the only two cars in the lead lap.
Yeah, that's quite amazing.
But having said that, I'm watching Jan Kowalski, and he's letting it all hang out. He's really pushing.
Well, he has Martin Lacina for fairly close company, so he sort of has to drive for a little bit longer.
Yeah, Lacina's been quick on the server. He's consistently been very quick. He hasn't had the best luck in races, but we'll see if he can close down on Jan.
Ooh, and a slightly close call between Jason Whited and Jan Kowalski there, as Jason Whited headed for the pits.
I would point out, too, that this is the only race this year that the number 55 car is a March 87C.
And it would seem like Jacob's crash was caused by a lapse of concentration. I just scammed over the forums. My apologies if I missed a useful or very well researched point.
Any other reactions on the forum besides that?
Not that I reacted too heavily on, I must say. I was mainly interested in knowing what caused Jacob's offload, to be honest.
Well, let me have a quick look through. I'll have a quick look through myself.
Okie dokie. So yeah, Jan has about, I'd say that's about an 8-second gap. Martin Lassina, although Martin Lassina, I believe, has headed for the pits. He has indeed. So Martin Lassina in the pits on lap 62 for him. Or just about to start lap 62.
Well, now that Grant has made his stop, he's got 26 seconds between himself and David.
I believe he's more or less set for the win unless something happens to with either lack of concentration or a damaged car.
Yeah. This is obviously going to increase Grant's chances of. I mean, it's a long shot still, even though he wins this one, because David Yunt is still scoring, would still, in theory, score points, but it does tighten things up considerably. I'm going to do some quick calculations of what would happen if the to the top three if the race ended now. I'll be right back.
Yep. And in the meantime, we'll follow this battle on track, which is for, let me double check, 8th and 9th between Adam Hackman and Jason Whited. They are 3 laps down to Grand Rudol, but nose to tail on the track. And after we've made the calculations, after Jason has made the calculations of the standings, we'll have a quick look at the trivia question and answer after that, and then we'll bring you home to the end of the race. But for now, it looks like Adam Hackman is actually pulling away from Jason Whited here. And of course, Jason Whited doing a very good job, starting from 23rd and last, as I mentioned earlier, currently sitting in 9th.
Alright, so you ready for this? This is pretty, this makes your pulse quicken looking at these numbers. Ready?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so if the race ended now, here would be the situation going into Tamiami. Grant Rudol would have 121 points, assuming that he takes the point for well, he actually 122, assuming if he takes the point for leading most laps and the pole. So he'd have 122. David Yunt would have 136 points for finishing second, and Jacob Fredrickson, having scored no points, would be at 139. So
wow,
yeah, so pretty impressive situation going into the final race. You'd have only a 3-point difference at the top, and I mean, still 122 to 139. That's still a 17-point difference. You know, so it would require a failure on both David Yunt and Jacob Fredrickson's part for Grant to win the championship. But he is doing the very best he can to place himself mathematically and within a shot of the championship.
Indeed, and with Tamiami being a street circuit, I believe, as we saw here, Jason Whited has a bit of a moment. The slightest lapse of concentration will result in either damage or a retirement at that circuit, so anything is definitely possible at Tamiami.
The other thing to take into account is who are our very best street circuit drivers.
Ooh, that's a difficult one to call. Grant, of course, had a fantastic race at Long Beach early in the season. But Jacob Ferguson has had some good touring car races around Adelaide. those kind of situations. We have some pace, and of course
Fredrickson
David is
had
all.
a great win at Cleveland.
Oh, we did indeed as well, and David of course has won the 500-mile races, but we do know that he's very consistent and can do quali laps, so he should have the pace. Maybe not quite the consistency, but he definitely has some very good pace as well.
I mean that is an amazing setup for Tamiami, with a 3-point difference. Assuming that David finishes where he is, it's just scintillating. What a fantastic end to it. What has been a really great series.
Absolutely, and fantastic that we get to have one of these really close open wheel series. Looking at how it's been in the last year, and then HSO F191 this season, with the championship being wrapped up in both USAC 73, the F1 78, and of course the F1 91 championships, more or less halfway into the seasons. But to have this, by the looks of it right now, to go to the last round is absolutely fantastic for us watching and trying to.
Alright, so are we ready for the trivia question and answer? Peter, you ready for that?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. Alright.
Yep, give me a moment here. I'm just setting up the camera so that we have a bit of room away from the engines and such. But here is the question again. And the question, of course, was: who won the first kart IndyCar race at Laguna Seca on October 23rd, 1983? Was it A. Al Unser Jr., B. Theo Fabi, or C. Mario Andretti?
Tick tock, tick tock, tock.
Oh, that's a tough one. I know that Bobby Rahal, 4-time winner, isn't he? That was a little later.
Well, Rahal's not one of the 3 choices, so.
Yeah.
It's not a fill in the blank question.
Well, anyway.
My guess would be Mario Andretti.
Okay, and here comes the answer. In 3, 2, 1. And the answer was Theo Fabi. That would be B. Theo Fabi. And he drove the number 33, the green and white Bandit sponsored car that year. Very similar color scheme to the Porsche powered car he drove in '88.
No. It's similar to E Plus A's car.
Oh, my apologies.
They're
You're
both
right.
green. They're both unlucky, I'll give you that.
Yeah. So yeah, my answer back then was earlier today was also Mario Andretti. So
if you're Bobby Unser, it's Theo Fabi.
if you're Swedish, it's Theo Fabi.
I try to cram as many Bobby-isms into one sentence. Looking at the on-car cam, there goes Fabi overtaking Johansson.
For the first and only time.
All alcohol has a very low boiling.
And while we've been working on the trivia question, Jason White has made his way past Adam Hackman. I believe that may have been while they were being lapped, because Martin Lacina was behind them before we went to the question, but he's now ahead of both of them.
That's great for Jason Whitehead, because he was having internet issues or power issues, and there was a power outage where he was, and he just managed to get it sorted right before race time, and he didn't have a qualifying lap, and here he is in the top 10. So that's pretty good considering what he had to deal with.
I didn't know that was the reason, but I did notice that he joined during the warm-up session and started from the back. So that's very, very impressive indeed.
Lucina is letting him go by. So he's actually got more pace than Lucina at the moment.
That's very impressive indeed, because Martin's been really quick in the last few rounds. But maybe he's saving fuel as well.
Yeah, maybe he's stretching out fuel too, you never know.
Let's see, we have 13 laps to go, and we have Raoul Jereb out of the race.
Oh no.
I just noticed. I'm having a quick look, see if we can see it on the broadcast, but it doesn't look like we'll be able to see what happened. Unfortunately
no, I
not.
just tried to look too, it happened too far back.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's a difficult track, and as we saw with Jakob Ferguson earlier, the slightest lapse of concentration can result with you after the race.
It looks like Gerard Rion is having an issue here. He's been in pits for quite a while. He's 9 laps behind in the race, but he's been sitting there stationary for a while. He might have some damage that he's... yeah, the engine is off, so he's got some damage that he's repairing, I guess.
Yeah, I believe so. I can't see any scuffs on the car, but I'm not sure how. I never actually looked extensively for damages on the car, so I don't know quite how they show that, besides knocking off the front wings and such.
He's just now fired the engine, so he might be getting ready to leave now.
And it seems
oh no,
like...
wait, sorry, that was John Team right behind him, so never mind. So he's sitting there patiently waiting for his repairs.
Yeah, and Jason White seems to have made a slight mistake, because he's now behind Adam Hackman again. And of course, looks like he had a bit of a moment in the corkscrew, lost out quite a bit of time.
Yeah, it appears he did.
Now it's
so there goes the curse again. We compliment him on how he's doing, and he has an incident on track.
Yeah, big apologies, Jason. It's the commentator's curse. It's difficult to get rid of, both for the commentators and of course the racers. Oh, I better stop talking about him, because now he ran wide at turn 5. As he let number 98, that's Yves Placé, he let by. So Placé has some good speed in the last few rounds, as Jason again had a bit of an issue in the corkscrew.
User disconnected from your channel.
Unfortunately, Peter had to leave, but thank you very much for joining us for parts of the broadcast. As Jason White runs wide at the hairpin, so he is a little bit rattled by the looks of things.
Getting close to the end here.
Yeah, maybe a little bit rattled as well, because when you make one mistake, you sort of think, how did I do that? And then you do more mistakes because you're worrying about the mistake you just made. Bit of an evil spiral as such.
Well, Juha is closing on him here, and he is one position behind, but there's actually 1 lap between the two of them. So, assuming if he caught Jason here, this would not be a change of position. Excuse me.
No worries. I've been yawning a couple of times as well, so my apologies for that to those watching and may or may have not noticed that. But another one who's had a good race here is Jon Team, sitting in 7th at the moment.
Oh man! Looks like he just had another moment going into the corkscrew.
maybe. I couldn't quite catch that on the broadcast.
Okay, now he's coming into pits.
Yeah, probably using up. Maybe he's used up the tires a bit too much in the last few laps, and no, it looks like he's only doing fuel.
Yeah, the car's not in the air, so he's just adding fuel for the end of the run.
That's an interesting call. Wonder if anyone else will have to do that. But as I said earlier, another one who's had a good race here is Jonatan, who's sitting in 7th. Sitting right behind Richard Wilkes. I'm not sure if that's for position or not. No, it isn't. It's a lap between them.
Position.
It looks like he's a little bit quicker than Richard at the moment, so... Ooh, as Richard heads into the pits...
Well, he's going to the pits anyway.
And here's Placé may be able to go by Richard here, because Yves is going through the second to last turn here, unless he heads for the pits as well. He doesn't. When looking up the inside of Martin Lacina there. Wow.
Guys, come on!
And he goes by Richard Wilkes as Richard leaves his pit stall. And actually Jason White is still in the pits. He must have had some damage or something then.
Must have.
Wow, that's so unfortunate. He was having such a good race.
Yeah, he's dropping down the order now. He's already 11th. He better get out soon. He's going to lose.
Yeah, he's going out now. He will be about 6, 7, 8 seconds behind Bruno Chacon. Even less actually. It's about this straight between turn 1 and 2 between them. So he could still get into the top 10 for the finish here.
Look at Mikael Janek, who was in that like incident earlier on lap 1 of myself and Fitch. He's stuck it out, and he's now in 12th place.
Yeah, that's a very, very neat little drive there to get back from where he was.
1 point.
I think he'll be happy with that, considering how his lap 1 went. Well, that looked very, very scary. The helicopter was flying across the hill, and looked like it was just a few feet over the track there. Oh, and Bruno, was that Bruno? Oh, yeah, that's Bruno Chacon. Oh no!
While he's out of the race.
Wow.
And that's the end of a really good string of finishes for him. He's had a good finishing record lately.
Oh, looks like he just got a bit more boost from the engine than he expected, because he went way past the turning point before the car started to try and turn in, and ended up out in the dirt and in the barriers. That's really unfortunate.
Well, this actually is going to mean that Mikael Janek's going to move into 11th place, and it will bring Gerard Rion up to 12th in his one-off appearance with the Penske.
Only just though. There's only seven laps to go, and he's actually, yeah, and he's 7 laps behind. No, sorry, that I'm looking at it the wrong way. Never mind what I was saying. Yeah, it'll bring him up into the points for his opening drive in this championship.
Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe not, because like you said, there's less than, no, he's probably going to finish just out of. Chacon might actually finish in 12th, even though he doesn't finish the race. And as we know in the kart series, you score points whether you finish or not. So he may be the first DNF that's still getting points, 1 point.
It'll be very, very tight. But also that brings Jason Whited up into the top 10. So I think he'll be happy with finishing in the top 10 if he is able to keep it on the track for the last 6 laps now, I suppose. And hopefully Richard Wilkes will be able
Chocolate's car is still on the track. I'm not sure why he hasn't escaped out of there, but...
well, maybe he needed to leave the computer for a little while, try to cool off, and has to not break his computer screen or something like that. But another one I hope is able to finish where he is Richard Wilkes, because he's had some torrid races lately, and he's been in the hunt for the finishing in the points, but unforeseen incidents has meant that he has scored very few points in the last few rounds.
Yeah, he's had, I think he would admit as much as anyone, he's had a kind of a dreadful year in this series. I think he's looking forward to turning the page to 2018.
Certainly, but it would certainly be a bit of payback to be able to finish inside the top 10, and I believe he's currently inside the top, just outside the top 5. But maybe he still needs to do a splash and dash, and if he does, then Richard will go past him and finish in the top 5 in this race. But Grant Vidal now starts his 81st lap. So we have 4 laps to go until the end of this race. And only 4 laps until he's pulled off one of the wins he needs to be able to stay in the championship.
Yeah, this. I speaking from the point of view of an observer, I'm thrilled to death that we're going to Miami with the championship not decided yet.
I think I can agree with that. It's really exciting and really amazing that that's the case after 13 rounds. But the championship still isn't that close. Especially with the point structure where a win means quite a bit more points than what you get for second.
It was my imagination, I guess, but it looks like Grant is starting to throttle back a little bit. Just to try to either save fuel or just trying to take it easy.
Well, you can't really blame him because he has quite a big lead, and of course he probably still remembers Road America.
That too.
Well, there have been occasions where throttling back has been a bad idea.
There's been a collision somewhere.
Oh,
it's Richard Wilkes!
No!
No!
No! You got to be kidding me!
Son of a... Get the replay here. He did the exact same thing that... Oh, man. He did the exact same thing that...
Jacob Ferguson
did. Got onto the thing, but the difference was that it caught the car and sent it into a slide. He corrected, and it went straight back the other way.
Oh.
Into the wall. That's... Oh my goodness, he's going to be kicking himself. If I know Richard, he's going to be just really angry with that. That's rough.
Well, the only positive thing with that is that he will finish inside points, despite retiring.
Yeah, he will still score points. He's finished enough laps.
Indeed, but that's still a very small consolation when you were running so well in the race. That's really, really unfortunate.
Another driver that's having a great race is Adam Hackman, who normally is a better oval driver than a road course driver, but here he is running in 8th place, soon to be 7th.
Indeed, and Jon Team too is having a very good race.
That's true, yeah.
And he too has struggled a little bit in the rounds he's attended, but good to see that.
Oh man!
Ooh!
Shoot! Lucina had a bit of a miscue there, but goodness. Alright, here we go. White flag out. 1 lap to go for Grant Rudall.
Let's give him his due, because that's a fantastic drive.
This is really the. I mean, this is the dream scenario from a viewing point of view, and I know that Jacob would have loved to have wrapped it up today, but we're going to Tamiami with an incredible. He and David can essentially fight it out on the streets. It'll be winner take all between the two of them. And knowing those two, I don't think they'd have. I think they'd rather have it any other way. It's going to be a great situation.
It definitely will.
Into the corkscrew for the last time.
Nice and easy, no lockups or anything. Nice and easy on the throttle application by the looks of things. Not even a slide coming out to the second
Got one
last
more
turn.
turn to go, and he's got it.
Very,
last turn.
Very neat and tidy.
And there he goes.
And he waves across the start-finish straight as he goes across the line to take the win here and stay in the championship. What a fantastic drive! Absolutely stunning.
Fantastic. Now David Yunt is still on his final lap.
Coming up
I don't think
towards
he'll
the
be making
corkscrew.
the mistake he did on the final lap at Nazareth.
He's not close enough to make such a mistake, I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
Had he been right behind Grant coming into the last turn, that could have been what could have happened. But here he comes out to the second to last turn, heading into the hairpin for the final time.
Heads into the hairpin, coming off. The championship stays alive.
And very, very tight indeed as he crosses the line to finish second here tonight. Another very, very good drive from David. Jan Kowalski finishes third, which is a nice finish for him.
Drive, yeah.
Definitely, and that's
fourth.
Indeed. That's another very good drive. And let's see. Wow, fifth for Yves Placé. That's a fantastic drive, considering he's only been in the championship for the last few rounds, I think.
No, he's been in it from the beginning. He just hasn't had as many good results.
Oh, my apologies. Well, let's see, finishing sixth is Jon Team. Another really good result for him, or a great result for him, because as we said earlier, he's been struggling as Grant Rudall is making donuts in the pit lane. He's clearly very happy
Gerard
with that.
finishes in 12th and gets 1 point.
Indeed. And Hackman finishes 7th. Juha Boss finishes 8th. Jason Whitehead gets 9th, just about getting out ahead of Richard Wilkes, who finishes 10th after retiring. And Michael Janak finishes 11th. But wow,
right,
what a race that became.
I am going to go and take care of the results and points. I'm sure you're going to be hearing from Mr. Yunt in a moment.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for joining me for the last half of the race.
Thank you for another stellar broadcast. I mentioned you're our Paul Page on Facebook.
Thank you very much. That's a great honor to be likened to Paul Page.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Take care.
Take care, and thank you yet again.
User disconnected from your channel.
As I think we
User
had
joined your channel.
a couple of guys joining us. I'm just going to quit the game so that I can get the screen up and running properly. And we are joined by David, Junt and Juha Boos. Congratulations, David. You're still very much in the championship hunt, mate.
Thanks. Thank you.
And Juha, you look like you got a good finish as well in 8th, I believe. I'd assume you're pretty happy with that.
Judging by my pace the rest of the weekend, I'm very happy with 8. Better than expected.
Well, that's good to hear. And
Don't like this track, so anything is good. Any result is a good one.
Yeah. And yeah, what a race that became. Well, for the first 55 laps, the championship was hanging in the air, and then tell us from your point of view, David, maybe rather, how was your race and how do you look at the championship going into the last round?
Quite nerve-wracking, to be honest, or at least I could feel like the sweat running down, even though there I think wasn't, but I had to blink quite a lot since I had to concentrate a lot to get second in qualifying and to plant it ahead of Jacob because Grant was uncatchable. 1.3 seconds, it's just like mid-Ohio over again. Only this time I at least managed to get a good lap in. And then at the start, probably too low gear, but I just managed to hold Jacob off, and then later I kinda noticed that he was probably boosting less and I couldn't drop him. I still made some small mistakes, I got held up at some parts, and then he always managed to drag past me, and twice I kinda muscled myself back past him because, well, I mean, he could easily get it in Miami, but I was feeling, nope, I mean, he could get it here now if he wanted to, but I was thinking I mean, I can live with second or third or whatever, but I'm gonna bring the fight to him. I did, and I think I could have maybe hold him off towards the end because I was boosting a bit because I had been too much, so I could use it and just try to open the gap 2, 3, 4 seconds, and then I noticed 10 seconds and I saw him out. So of course I think it looks like Grant did the same, back to boost 1 and just making sure the car doesn't explode or anything. I tried at the end to open it a bit again to maybe try to steal Grant's fastest lap for fun, but then I thought, not gonna work out. I'm gonna take second and bring us back to square one nearly for a three-way fight, since calculating in my head it's 3 points behind Jacob and Grant's 4 behind, so it's everyone 7 points and everything's to play for, I guess.
It definitely is, and it's great that the championship ends up being this close after 13 rounds and that we will get a championship decider in the last round.
True. I should beat myself up spinning at Nazareth on the last lap now. That cost me 8 points!
Oh well. It's still a good championship hunt and a good championship position for you. 3 points is, as long as you win, you will probably, if you win at Tamiami, I think you'll get the championship.
Well,
unless I'm mistaken in the point structure.
Pole position and most laps led, I think, and then if Jacob would get both, I would not win. If I won it, he got second, I think, because it's 4 points for the win and the gap between first and second, so he would win by 1 point, I think.
And yeah, Juha, feel free to tell us a little bit about your race and how you got through it.
Well, my race wasn't that eventful, basically. I got a very good start for once. I think I gained 5 or 6 places, but because the guys ahead behind me were a lot faster, I got back again. I thought I just struggled until the end, really. Hoping on retirements, and in the end I gained another lap on Wilt's retired, and I also got ahead of Jason White, which quite surprised me, because I thought I would run into 10th or 11th place, and in the end I got 8th, so I'm very happy with it.
That's
more race to go and I'll be rid of it.
Well, I thought you were enjoying the championship.
I am enjoying the championship. I'm just a bit off the pace. That's the problem.
Okay, fair enough.
Maybe I should try getting another car since I've already had 5 or 6 this year. I think there's one available.
Well, there's probably the Dale Coin car available.
I've already had it. I was thinking of a yellow one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that would probably be a quick car around Tamiami. But yeah, looking at the last round coming up at Tamiami, what are your thoughts? What are your approaches? Maybe David first.
Sorry?
Sorry, I should rephrase the question. With the last round coming up at Tamiami, what approach will you take to the race? Will you try to be careful, or will you go all out to try and take fastest most laps led and take the win, or how are you looking towards the last race?
That's tough to say, honest, but I mean, if I could get a pole, I think I would score 1 point, which would bring me 2 points to Jacob, and even if he would lead more laps, and if I win, like overtake one last lap, I would be able to beat him in a championship. But if I don't, it will be a bit tougher, I guess. But street course races are always a bit different rules. I mean, one step wrong, one too hard to the barrier, and you could have steering damage, and effectively the race for first, possibly more, would probably be over. So I'm always more of the careful side, actually. Maybe I need to be aggressive at ups, but here I would say I might try to look that I get a pole, but then again I hope I not try to use the patience and attack at the right moment, putting a possible performance in at the right moment and not setting a foot wrong. That's all I can think about right now. So I hope it's gonna at least work, the plan.
Sounds like a good plan to have and a good approach to have. And Juha, you were talking about possibly picking up another car. What will your approach be? Will you try to go for the win if possible, or?
Well, actually, the car I have is already good enough for the win. I just can't drive it. I'll just try to get the best possible result. I'm usually better at those street courses than, well, things like Laguna Seca, which is not my thing. I'm hoping for a better result. If I could get a top 10, I'll be happy again.
Sounds like a good plan, and hopefully you'll indeed get a top 10, and hopefully, David, you will be in with a shot at the championship towards the end of the race, and we'll get a fantastic finish to the last round. I do apologize, Michal, but the broadcast has gone on for almost 3 hours, so I want to wrap it off. So thank you very much for joining us, David, Johan, Michal, and thank you for putting on a good show tonight. And congratulations on your finishes and on scoring points, all 3 of you, and especially congratulations, David, for still being well inside the championship hunt. And also thank you very much everyone for watching, and I hope you tune in I believe it's 2 weeks time for the final round of the championship, where the championship will be decided around the street course of Tamiami in Miami. But until then, take care and good night.
Bye bye.
Is the broadcast finished?